Here we are. Welcome everybody to the monthly Sinclair Method Q&A that we host here on Thrive Alcohol Recovery. And today I have with me Bruce Rose, the incredible Bruce Rose from all the way over in Scotland. Great to have you here, Bruce. Bruce has a wealth of knowledge and such a unique experience because his background is really in traditional rehab and recovery. And when he learned about the Sinclair Method several years ago, he thought it was too good to be true and maybe even a scam, and then did his research and came back around. And now he's been helping people through it for several years now. So it's awesome to have you here, Bruce. How are you doing today?
I'm really well, yeah, thank you. It's getting cold here in the UK, so
Oh, yeah?
we're a bit chilly, but getting busy. Cuckoo, hello, cuckoo. I know cuckoo, I think.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, good to have you here.
No,
Go ahead.
no, just saying, really, really good. Getting busy, which is good. So,
Yeah.
And yourselves? You busy?
Yeah, things are going good here in the US and with Thrive, and I'm just continuing to spread the word and advocate for the Sinclair Method. So excited to have everyone here who's joining on today's call. I see we have people from both YouTube and Facebook joining us. Welcome to everyone. Just so you guys are aware, if you're on YouTube, you won't see the Facebook comments, and if you're on Facebook, you won't see the YouTube comments. So sometimes people get confused about where are the comments coming from? They're not seeing it. So just be aware of that. I just want to welcome everyone again. So the purpose of this call is really a time for you to come ask questions about the Sinclair Method and hear from Bruce or I as we respond really from a coach's perspective after, me personally going through the method and coaching people for about 5 years now, and Bruce with his background in traditional rehab and recovery and being a Sinclair Method counselor for several years as well. We can't give medical advice because we're not doctors, but we can certainly speak to the behavioral side of the Sinclair Method and any questions you have around that. We can also tell you, if you have questions that are, more medically related, we can tell you that's a question for your doctor. So I'm really excited to have everyone here. If you have questions or comments, or you just want to share how your Sinclair Method journey is going, I just invite you to drop something in the chat there. We would love to hear from you. It's awesome to have everybody here who's joining us. I think we're ready to kind of officially kick things off. So just to get started, I'm curious to hear from you, Bruce, if you wouldn't mind sharing, as someone who has come from more the traditional rehab world where we say, abstinence is really the only way to overcome alcohol addiction, and there's no alternative to, allow someone to drink at safer levels or moderate levels. What was that like for you to go from that shift of really believing that abstinence was the only way, and then learning about something like the Sinclair Method where people don't have to quit drinking? In fact, the treatment requires people to keep drinking. What was that like for you?
Different stages, I think, is the way to describe it. When I first heard about it, I think your video was probably one of the second ones I saw. I saw Claudia's, and then I saw yours, and I can't repeat on a live, especially on your live, what I thought. I just come from a training background where I was taught everything in life was abstinence. Every model available today is all about abstinence, and I've got a drinking problem, so therefore the only solution is stop drinking. So when I heard about this, I thought, hang on, number one, the success rate was huge. Number two, people would have to carry on drinking for it to work initially on a reduction program. And number three, it was the process that they had to go through on it. It just kicked in everything that I had learned, taught, worked in for years and years and years. And then there was a bit of doubt and everything else. When I started doing the research into it, when I started looking at the neuroscience and the biology, and I thought, actually, that makes sense. When you drink, it produces endorphin. The addiction is to the endorphin. When you remove the endorphin on abstinence, it creates craving. The relapses are caused because of craving. Yeah, that's everything that I saw in rehab. And then, so the more I looked at it, so I thought, yeah, that makes sense. So I then started working with clients, and I saw client after client after client working their way through the process. And then I got really, really excited. And then I got really, really frustrated because I thought, well, hang on a minute. I went and spoke to another couple of people and I said, organizations said, hey, listen, this is working. This works. And well, no, we can't do it because of X, Y, Z. And I'm like, so it's different stages, but it was looking at the difference between it now is the only word I can use is beautiful. It's so nice. When I worked in rehab, our whole job was stopping people from relapsing. Everything was geared up. If we look at peer support groups, every peer support group is structured to stop people relapsing. That's why they have the meetings. That's why you have sponsors. That's why you have everything else to stop people relapsing. You do it every day. I know we speak to client after client after client, and the majority of conversations we have are positive.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful.
Yeah, just with my own experience, kind of the contrast with abstinence, because I tried to quit drinking dozens of times over the nearly 10-year period. I struggled whether I could last a day or two or a month or two or 6 months one time I lasted. I was constantly trying to just quit drinking, thinking that was my only option because every time I tried to moderate, I couldn't. And it was like, just a completely, and I think people listening can relate to this white knuckled experience of just all you want to do with all your being is take a drink. It's like you have this itch that someone is telling you not to scratch, and all you can think about is that itch. Or like I made a video recently talking about how I felt like I was starving for alcohol, like a starving person starves for food in a sense, where it was just like I felt like I needed it on some level to even feel normal or to survive. And then the idea and the practice of just resisting that urge every single day, every single time I would give in and be like, it's not worth it. It's not resisting that urge. It's so overwhelming, the desire to have alcohol, that I'd rather drink and face the consequences that come with it rather than just try to abstain and not allow myself to drink. And that was such a battle that I think, many people here can probably relate to, and what it's like to be stuck in those cycles of alcohol use disorder. And with the Sinclair method, it was the complete opposite of that, to where like I had that overwhelming urge to drink, that craving, and I was like, I can drink. I just have to take this pill beforehand. And so I was able to kind of surrender to that urge, to give into it, knowing that every time I was drinking on naltrexone, it was helping my brain unlearn this disordered behavior and unlearn that alcohol addiction. And it was like, I honestly, you say the word beautiful, I say miracle. Even though it's not like an instant fix or an overnight cure, I really do feel like it was this miraculous treatment and miraculous protocol that gave me the best of both worlds, where I could drink, I could surrender to that overwhelming urge. But then by drinking, that overwhelming urge was just getting quieter and quieter and quieter, to where, as you know, like after a year on the treatment, I accidentally stopped drinking because the urge wasn't there anymore. And of course, there was more to it than just, relying on the medication alone. Like there's a lot of work in between that a lot of people, I think, recognize the longer they're on the pill. Like on our group call this week, several of our members were talking about the habit challenges. They're like, I don't have that desire to drink anymore, but it's the habit that's happening. And I think a lot of people listening, if you're on the Sinclair method, you can relate to that naltrexone quiets the craving, but then our habits are kind of at play. But even with that, even with the fact that there is extra work to do besides taking the pill, I just really feel like it was a miracle. It's like it short-circuited the addiction and just gradually erased it from my brain, allowing me to do the behavior that felt natural to me, which was to give in to the urge to drink.
And now, can I ask you the question I always ask you, because I know the answer, but just for anyone listening, now that you've stopped drinking, do you find what's the difference between abstinent now and abstinent before naltrexone?
There's peace now. Like, if I could say it in the simplest way, like, I remember when I would try to quit drinking before, the thought of never having alcohol again, it just, my future seemed gray. It seemed boring. It seemed like I'd be missing out on something that I loved to do. So abstinence for me, I really hated it. I hated being sober. I hated even one day of sobriety and going to things or occasions that didn't have drinks. Like, I wanted to drink 7 days a week. So when I was abstinent, I was constantly just denying myself something I really, really wanted. And there was this internal turmoil and conflict that was just constantly happening from the moment I woke up until I went to bed. And now with the Sinclair method, I just don't even think about it. Like, my husband still drinks. He could be having $100 bottle of wine that someone gave us, and it's the best wine there is, and I just could care less. It might as well be a bottle of ketchup. Like, I have no desire, no story, no anything. And like, I feel as if how I felt before I started drinking. Like, all of us can think back to a time, even if it was in our childhood, when we weren't drinking and we didn't care about alcohol. And like, it just, maybe we'd see our parents drink and it was like, there was no emotion, no story, no need. And that's how I feel now. It's just like, I really don't care about it. And I love the fact that I can drink if I want to. Like, if I really wanted to drink tomorrow, I would just take naltrexone and drink, no problem. So I love that I have that option. I just saw this comment. First Thanksgiving dinner I can remember in the last 20 years, thanks to TSM and you folks. That's incredible. I hope everyone had a great Thanksgiving who are here in the US, by the way, if you're doing TSM. That's life-changing right there, John. Thank you for that comment.
Amazing. Yeah. And like the more I read, the more I became absolutely convinced that it makes complete sense. I share Bruce's frustration that no one in the medical or addiction professions will listen. Yeah, I think everyone that goes through TSM or hears about it, or you go through different stages, you doubt it initially, then once you do the research, you then get really, really excited about it, and then you realize that it does genuinely work, and that's a revelation of itself. And then when you know that it works, I think everyone, whether it's your coaching or whether you're working with people or whether you're someone going through it yourself, there's always that frustration. It's like, well, hang on a minute, I know another 50 other people this would not 50, but there's a lot of other people to work for. So I think everyone goes through that process. But yeah, it's getting there. It's definitely getting there slowly. So.
Yeah, and I think what's so cool about it is that there's literally decades of research behind naltrexone for alcohol, researched in different ways of using it. And so if anyone is doubting it, or if you're researching it for yourself, or your doctor's doubting it, like, you have decades of evidence to stand on in these double-blind, placebo-controlled trials that prove over and over again that naltrexone is very effective for treating alcohol use disorder. So like, I loved the fact when I was on the treatment that I could access those and look at them and look at the data and read the book, The Cure for Alcoholism, and really see like, wow, I honestly didn't really have any doubt. I had some doubt, like, oh, what if I'm part of the 22% it doesn't work for? But I think it's incredible that we have that evidence to ground into, because I think a common challenge for people as well, because we've kind of been indoctrinated to believe that abstinence is the only way. Some of us can feel guilty that we're still drinking, even though we're using this protocol that's proven effective. There is some guilt maybe that we have to overcome, like, oh, I shouldn't be drinking, or because I'm still drinking, I'm bad, which really is not true. I believe it's just kind of how we've been made to believe what alcohol addiction recovery should look like. But if you look at the stats of that as well, it's failing a lot of people. It's not working for a lot of people. So that's where the Sinclair method is really, really powerful. I just want to see this comment from Helena. Yes, I had a great Thanksgiving. No hangover the next day. Yay, that's so awesome. And she also says, for me, it took over a year to see a big change. Thank you so much for speaking to that, because I think sometimes when we start this treatment, and I don't know what you think about this, Bruce, with the clients you've worked with, but we often want the results yesterday. We're just so impatient to get this problem behind us. And I know what that's like. So congrats to you, Helena, for kind of sticking it out and being patient and persistent and persevering with it, because there's a good percentage of people that it takes more than a year to see those significant changes on TSM. Some people respond more quickly, others it does take longer. And I've seen that as a coach pretty often, and it's various life reasons and circumstances that can cause that to be. But I thank you for speaking to that. So this individual is asking how to approach Oh yeah. I think there's a delay. Sorry guys. I think there's a delay on our recording. So sorry if Bruce and I are talking over each other a little bit. This person's asking, how do we approach a doctor? Is this treatment common knowledge? I'm in a small town. So if you're in the US, I guess let us know where you are in the world if you're in the US. This treatment, unfortunately, is not common knowledge, even though it's been researched for 30 plus years. If you want to go to your general doctor, for example, what I would recommend you do is you go on pubmed.gov or Google Scholar, or just search in Google naltrexone for alcoholism. And you can bring in a study, and preferably one that John David Sinclair did, just to have that at the appointment so your doctor is aware that this medication has been researched for alcohol. That would be a good thing to arm yourself with. Okay, you're in Smith Center, Kansas. Is to go into the appointment with a study like that. Or you can bring the book, The Cure for Alcoholism. That talks all about the research behind the method. That would be my suggestion if you want to go to your regular doctor, because they may know it and they may prescribe it. They may not prescribe following the Sinclair method, which is the specific way to use the medicine, or they may refuse the prescription. But if you go in there with a study, I think that can be really helpful. Alternatively, at Thrive, we have telemedicine doctors. If you join our program, we can refer you to a telehealth physician that can prescribe, who is able to treat you in your state. So you can contact us if you have any questions about that.
And can I also just on the back of that as well, is that I don't work for Katie. I have no financial benefit from being here tonight. So just make that disclaimer before I say this. But the longer that I'm involved with the Sinclair method, the more I'm starting to appreciate the support structure that anybody has. So yes, there's options all over the world of getting the medication, which is great. But the more people I speak to involved with TSM or worldwide, the more we're starting to realize that the support side of it is absolutely vital. So really, the reason I'm saying that is if you are in the States, please, 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 like I said, I don't make anything out of this myself, so please have a look at Thrive. It's an incredible program. So
Thank you, Bruce.
Just use this. We don't have time to explain it tonight, but the support structure is absolutely vital. And it's easier for someone outside to say that rather than you putting your own programs.
Thanks, Bruce. Yeah, we really pour our hearts and souls into it, all the coaches and the team at Thrive, just because we really want to see people get free from problem drinking with TSM. So I'm really honored to hear you say that. Thank you so much. And we have TSM meetups here. Hello, welcome. Glad to have you guys here.
It's a small world, the TSM world, isn't it? Well, right around the world.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, TSM Meetups has been hosting, if you guys aren't aware, their website's tsmmeetups.com. They have, I think, daily meetings for TSM. I think they occur every day. And they've been having Dr. Volpicelli on doing a series about learning and unlearning addiction. And if you guys don't know who Dr. Volpicelli is, he's literally the leading researcher and expert and clinician on naltrexone for alcoholism and using that medication. And he actually, I reposted one of their videos on my channel not long ago where he was kind of addressing the fact of why naltrexone isn't more well known and why aren't more physicians using it. So I would definitely recommend you check out those videos, because if anyone is going to kind of, be able to cause naltrexone to be more widely used, it would be this leading researcher and expert. But even he has had trouble with it. And so he really believes that it's kind of the grassroots movement that we're all a part of, TSM meetups, Thrive, Bruce, you all, everyone who's watching this now and who will watch in the future. It's kind of on us to continue to spread the word and go to our doctors and ask for this medication in order to really start to demand it from the medical community, because it doesn't seem like it's trickling down the other way.
I don't know why I suddenly thought to say this, but I was just, as you were talking there, I was just thinking about a guy that I worked with about 3 years ago. And again, just to give you a quick idea of one person that I've worked with that it works. This guy was drinking a bottle of Jack Daniels and 2 bottles of wine every day. And he was what we'd classify in the UK as a chronic drinker. He came on the program, we started him. We reduced him over a period of time. And he today, I hadn't spoken to him for about a year and a half, I think. And he messaged me last week and he said, Bruce, he said, I still drink twice a week, 3 times a week. I'll have 1 or 2 glasses of wine. I can go to a wedding and have an extra couple of drinks if I fancy it. He said, I'm in complete control. And he said, no white knuckling it, no craving, no obsessive thinking about alcohol. He said, it took a while for me to accept life as being normal again. But the reason I'm saying that is that the process will work whether someone is drinking 2 to 3 bottles of wine a week, or a lot of people think, well, people that are on this program obviously weren't proper drinkers. Katie's got stories. I've got stories of a whole bunch of people who are drinking very, very high levels, who have reduced it right the way down to a controlled level. And I believe that when we treat it as, I believe it's a neurological condition. It's a progressive neurological condition of the brain. And it needs to be treated initially with medication alongside of a doctor, and then the support program that then helps people reduce right the way down. And when you do it like that, that's why the success goes through the roof. If we try and do it through willpower, which is all abstinent-based models are all willpower-based, if we are going to continue to do it with willpower, however they title it, whether it's AACA, Rehab, whatever, it's all rehab, it's all abstinent-based models with willpower. Why are we treating a neurological condition with willpower? I've got epilepsy, it's a neurological condition. You wouldn't tell me to go to your local epilepsy support group and do your 12 steps on having seizures. It just doesn't make sense. Not that they're bad. I mean, they've helped a lot of people, and they still help a lot of people. But medicine has moved on, and we need to. I did a thing today where I said we need to update the folder. The folder's out of date. The folder's out of date. We need to update the folder and embrace the neuroscience and the medicine.
Yeah. Well said, Bruce. I completely agree. And something we often say at Thrive and with our members is just like this reminder that helps them be in the mindset of what success looks like on the Sinclair method. And it's the fact that naltrexone and TSM, we say, are 50% of it. Like for me, I know my personal experience, crucial 50%, like foundational. I would not be here today without that piece. But the other 50% is how we meet the treatment halfway and work to change our beliefs about alcohol. You know, for example, for me, I genuinely believed that I could not de-stress from my day without a bottle of wine. I believed I could not socialize at a social function without having a few drinks. Like so many of these kind of unconscious beliefs I had about alcohol's role in my life, I recognized that if I didn't start to become aware of those and shift those, I was fighting the medication. I remember this on Fridays when I was on TSM. I didn't want to drink. And I hear this from a lot of people that say the desire is gone or it's really reduced. Like I don't have that craving for a drink, but here I am taking naltrexone and drinking anyway. And that's exactly what I did on Fridays for such a long time. I kind of had more alcohol-free days other days and my drinking was reducing, but I couldn't let go of Fridays on TSM where I would just drink and drink through the medication. And I started to realize it was because I really believed that like I needed a bottle of wine at least on a Friday. Like that was just who I was, what I did, this ritual I had. And so I had to become aware of that and consciously choose to do something else on that day. And that's just one simple example. I could give a million examples, but back to kind of my original point around the protocol being a crucial 50% of it, but the other 50% is us kind of embarking on this healing journey and kind of understanding, why am I drinking? Like, what am I turning to alcohol for. And oftentimes it's to numb out, to escape, to turn off the brain. And I'm not going to lie, you know, I was used to that instant gratification, that quick fix that came from alcohol. So trying to find different ways to de-stress after a terrible day, you know, other than alcohol, it was a process of uncovering things because you know, having a cup of tea or going for a walk or getting a massage, none of that stuff gave me that instant gratification, that just like immediate buzz and intoxication that I got from alcohol. So that I had to unlearn being someone who wanted that, you know, instant buzz and instant gratification, and start to be satisfied with, you know, the more slower gratification, if you will, of like a cup of tea and deep breathing or going on a walk. But what's so cool, I think, about humans, just like we learned alcohol use disorder, we can learn other things as well. And so I think for people to recognize, to have that mindset, like they say in psychology, the growth mindset of, you know, right now I feel like I don't have any other coping tools other than wine, but I know that in the future I can have other coping tools. And it's just a matter of me practicing those, whatever it is, those different coping tools, in order to kind of teach myself. And then before you know it, they really become the new habit and they start to feel like second nature. But I think that's really the challenging phase that a lot of people go through on the method, is where they see the method and medication working, but then they're like, oh shoot, now I've got to like change my habits and behaviors and no longer lean on alcohol as a coping tool anymore. And I just feel for everyone out there who's using this method, because that's not an easy process for most of us. It wasn't easy for me. I had to go to therapy and kind of do a lot of work and change a lot of things about my life in order to change my drinking through the Sinclair method. So I just wanted to speak to that a little bit. I wonder if you have anything to add, Bruce.
No, I mean, when you're thinking that, the one thing that I've learnt massively in the last 6 months, I think, and the more I look at it, the more I learn it, is that a lot of people, I've started asking people the question, what are we addicted to? Well, what are people addicted to? And I get every different response from alcohol, ethanol, wine, beer, escapism, all that kind of stuff. And eventually I say, no, we're addicted to endorphin. That's a different subject. But I suddenly realized a lot of people were saying to me escapism and coping and all that kind of stuff. And then what I learned from when I worked in rehab, like I said, guys were relapsing all the time, no matter how much coaching and counseling and everything they'd had. And so I thought, okay, what's going on here? And then when I started to realize that people will start to drink in the past, or through a period of high stress or a period of trauma, they will increase the amount that they're drinking. However, what then happens is, because they've increased the amount they're drinking because of the trauma, the brain is then getting more and more and more endorphin at a higher frequency and a higher level. And that at some point during that process, the brain will tip over into addiction or dependency on the endorphin. The minute that happens in the brain, if someone's drinking every day, they're drinking every day. The reason why they're drinking every day changes every day. But the real reason why they're drinking is because the brain is dependent or addicted to the endorphin. And I thought, right, okay. And then what I'd learned was, with abstinent-based models, because 90% of people cannot sustain their sobriety, the only explanation as to why they can't stay sober is to turn it round and to point the finger back at the individual and say, okay, it's your fault. So you must have unresolved issues. You must have things that you haven't dealt with. So we need to put you back into counseling. I did it for years with rehab. Yeah. And I suddenly realized that when the brain becomes dependent and it tips over into addiction, it suddenly becomes two issues, two very, very separate issues. And that's where Thrive, TSM and everything comes into its huge, because it deals with the two issues. One is the addiction to the endorphin. It's a neurological process. The other one is the past stuff. So once you get everything under control, the neurological condition under control with the reduction program, it then allows you to work on the other stuff. But the reason that you're relapsing is not because of the other stuff. You still need to work with that stuff and deal with the habits and behaviors and stuff. But that was a long way around to say, the reason that you can't sustain your sobriety if you've tried is not because of that. It's because of the addiction to the endorphin and the craving.
That's such a different mindset shift, Bruce. I love that you said that, because it really, I think, takes the sting away and the stigma away of, oh, I'm addicted to alcohol, or I don't have power over alcohol. It's like, well, when you look at it at like a deeper level, what's actually going on, and it's exactly what you said, the brain is addicted to that reward it's getting. Yes, it's getting it from alcohol, but it could get it from other drugs and things like that. So understanding that, I think, is so, for me, it was like an empowering realization that it was just like something that my brain had learned. My brain loved pleasure, and alcohol gave it pleasure. And this treatment was going to help me break the link between alcohol being that primary pleasure in my life, so that I could realize there were other pleasures that I could enjoy in life, and not just feel like alcohol had to be number one, front and center. And I think your point kind of leads into this comment and question someone had, where they say they're 3 years sober and they drank this summer and went totally off the rails. Now they're almost 3 months sober again, but getting an urge to drink. How could I implement this strategy? Did you want to speak to that, Bruce? And then I can chime in as well.
Yeah, the 3 years sober. When abstinent-based programs will work for a lot of people, and they work well for a lot of people. The challenge with an abstinent-based model is the brain becomes addicted to the endorphin. So when you remove that endorphin from the brain, Dr. Sinclair found that the brain drops into what he called the alcohol deprivation effect. So during those 3 years, your brain, the wiring of the neurological pathways in the brain that has taught your brain alcohol equals huge reward, is there. So when you stop overnight on abstinence, it hasn't. That's still there, which is why you still think about alcohol and you have the obsessive thinking, because the memory for that huge reward hasn't gone anywhere. It's still there. So you stop drinking, it drops into deprivation, and the craving builds. Now you may have been able to manage it over the 3 years, but that craving has built and built and built and built. Now, for some reason, something tips someone over the edge, and they go, well, I've had 3 years, I can have one drink or whatever. But they have one drink, the brain gets that massive endorphin reward again, and within the space of 2 to 3 days, bang, someone's back into a full-blown relapse. And it's purely because of the endorphin. It's that massive. Always remember that everything is driven by the endorphin. That's what controls everything. And then 3 months sober again, but getting urges to drink. How could I implement this strategy? Some people do start it. We wouldn't recommend that you start it deliberately from being sober. But what I would do is I would have a look at the process. If you know that you're getting to a stage where you cannot fight the craving, that the best solution from abstinence is to remain abstinent and to work it. Now, if you then get to the point where you do struggle, I've had 1 or 2 clients that we have worked with, but please, 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 if you do that, then get yourself a good coach. Again, if you're in the States, speak to Thrive, speak to someone, get yourself a good coach to talk you through that process. But it's the process will work. I've had one guy, he was drinking a bottle of whiskey a day. He stopped drinking. He knew, again, on the back of it was a doctor's assessment that gave us the answer for this one. And the doctor said it was safe and okay to do it. We then implemented it. Today, he drinks 2 cans of beer twice a week. There's no craving, no white knuckling it, and nothing else. But the period of abstinence, if you can maintain your abstinence, absolutely keep going with it. Keep going with it. But if it does go the other way, then get in touch. But make sure you have a coach to talk you through it. That side of it, I cannot emphasize enough. Make sure you get proper medical advice and you get a good coach to work with you.
Yeah, really well said. And I've seen a few people go from being abstinent into the Sinclair Method. In fact, I have some interviews on my YouTube channel if you want to search like AA to TSM. I think I have a few specifically people who are in AA. I don't know if you were in AA or not, but to Bruce's point, I think if you're in, and by the way, I wanted to say to check out the book about the method, The Cure for Alcoholism, because it talks about the science behind it and also talks about who the treatment is ideal for. Yep, Bruce has got his copy too. So that would be a good read for you just to understand more about the method and if you think it could work for you. And to Bruce's point, I really do think it's important that if you do decide to drink again and do this protocol, to really view it as a treatment protocol and take it very seriously. Just like you said, a few months ago when you drank and went off the rails, I'm really sorry about that, by the way. I know how destructive that can be. Just to ensure that that's not going to happen again. And you're going to start this treatment, not just because you want to get drunk on vodka, for example, but that, you really want to work to de-addict your brain so that you're not still having urges to drink 3 years later, if your ultimate goal is abstinence. Or if your ultimate goal is to, drink socially or moderately, that's possible as well through this treatment. Just in my personal experience, I'm over 5 years alcohol free through this treatment. That was never my intended goal. It's just kind of what happened by accident. But what's different for me now being sober compared to when I tried to go sober before TSM is the urge is gone. There's no temptation. There's no desire or wanting to drink because I know the addiction was pharmacologically extinguished from my brain through naltrexone and TSM. So it feels like it's been reversed or erased. And so if that's something you want, because I'm guessing you returned to drinking after 3 years sober because there was an urge to drink, it's really easy to not do something if you don't want to do it. But if you've got this urge to drink, it's hard to fight it sometimes. And that's why if you look at research, it estimates that 80% or more of people relapse after leaving traditional abstinence-based treatment programs within 6 months. So, 80% or more of people are relapsing, just like what happened with you. But, my view, and it kind of talks about it in this book as well, that if you're considering this treatment from abstinence, really doing it from the mindset, like if you really feel like you're going to relapse again and return to drinking again, and this is the protocol you want to use when you do that, I think that's, again, Bruce said, talking to a doctor for them to say whether or not it's a good treatment for you. That's just what I've seen with others who've done the protocol. But I've got lots of success stories of people who did that on my YouTube channel if you want to check those out. And yeah, check out our program that we have where we can really guide you through the treatment and help you really define the goals you want to have and get to a place where you have moderate social drinking, or if you want to ultimately go alcohol free once you reach pharmacological extinction. So I hope that helps.
Can I just add one more thing as well? What I've experienced as well with people is that when you have a long period of abstinence, like 3 years, you've spent 3 years of your life in that 3 years learning how to deal with emotions, psychological things, situations, circumstances within those 3 years. So a lot of the program on the Sinclair Method is dealing with the habitual side. So you've done that well for 3 years. The reason that you've relapsed is not, like Katie's saying, it's not your fault. It's your brain's fight against the craving and the endorphin. So a lot of the times when people have been abstinent for long periods, if they do go into then TSM, you'll find that the first month bears really, if the doctor gives you the go ahead with it, be really, really strict with taking your pill and having 1 drink every day or 2 drinks at the very most every day for a period of time. But you'll find that you'll be able to cope with it a lot easier because you've had that 3 years. A lot of people have had the long periods and then relapse and then another long period and relapse. They need something just to do that's that neurological process that they're not getting a hold of. And that can sometimes make the key. But the first month that you're on the process is absolutely vital. Be very, very, very strict because old habits can sneak back in.
Yeah, exactly. And, it's up to us whether we want to follow the golden rule of the method, which is compliance. And actually, I was reading in the book recently, and it says that 85% of people in the studies stayed compliant. So most people don't have an issue with it. But that's something to be aware of. That's a risk as well, of it's up to you whether or not you decide to take the pill beforehand. But most people, I think, once they've discovered this treatment, that becomes a non-negotiable for them, where they're just like, yeah, of course I'm going to take the medication. Like, I don't want to go back to where I was before. So all good stuff. Good questions. Thank you.
And then LPS Glitter Paws. I love that name. LPS Glitter Paws. Lovely dog picture too. I'm still drinking daily, but down from 3 bottles of wine to 1 to 1.5 a day. 3rd month, and I'm almost having no cravings, but continue to drink out of habit. Absolutely, Glitter Paws. First and foremost, well done. Absolutely fantastic. There are very, very clear patterns that we see happening with the process. And the first thing that I've noticed, or one of the things I've noticed that I can see straight away from there, is that we will not see a 30 to 50% reduction in the first week to 2 weeks of someone starting on the medication. It doesn't happen with everyone. So if some people haven't had it happen to you, then don't panic about it. It's not an everyday rule, but a lot of people will see that reduction. So it looks like you've seen that roughly 50% reduction. And you're absolutely right. The next stage is just about making that habitual change. Be 100% compliant, and then just make little changes week on week on week. Be careful not to make too big a change. Keep a drink diary, a daily drink diary, and that will help you log your patterns and your process and your success with it. But just make little changes and be very structured with that. Set out a plan. Okay, I'm going to go from 3 o'clock till 4 o'clock. If my start time is 3, move it till 4. And then if that's okay, do that for a week, then move it to 5 for a week. And just do little bits and be careful not to rush it. And you'll be amazed if you keep a track of it. In 3 months' time, you'll be miles ahead.
Yeah. Yeah, one of our coaches at Thrive posted an article a while back where it was just inviting people to do one thing different. And I like that mindset of just, rather than putting too much pressure on yourself or, oh, I need to do this specific goal, it's just going into each extinction session, asking yourself, what's one thing I can do different during this session? We have our kind of consistent things with compliance and drink logging, like those things you always want to do. But one other thing, maybe you can time your drinks and make it last you an hour rather than 30 minutes, or drink out of a different glass, or drink something else different. There's lots of different things you can do. We provide lots of suggestions in our program, but I think that's a simple way just to approach the session and really always be thinking, what's something else I can do different? Because to Bruce's point, it's these little things you do day by day, week over week, month over month that really add up to habit change over time. But it really does require consistency with it over a long period of time. And keeping in mind that drinking and what we've always done with drinking, that's the default choice. That's the easy choice. So it does take more mindfulness and more conscious effort to do something other than what you've been doing. Like, that's true for any habit we want to break. And it's especially true for a complex habit like alcohol use disorder, which is so linked to powerful rewards around alcohol. And I see this comment in here from Dupsy Daisy. Oh, I was just going to read this about, I'm going to read it because I think it's so relatable for many of us, where they say it's not just habit, but they get bored. And when they make a drink, they can function. So like cleaning the house and doing laundry causes them to feel alive. I know that sounds dumb, but it's true. I hate it. It doesn't sound dumb. And the reason that it makes you feel alive is what Bruce was talking about earlier. It's because you're getting that endorphin. You're getting a huge reward. So a boring task like cleaning all of a sudden becomes really rewarding because you've brought alcohol into the equation. I've heard so many people say they can clean so much better and clean so much more when they have alcohol in their system. And again, kind of like back to my challenge of alcohol being that instant gratification for me, it's a process of learning that, alcohol isn't the only thing we need when we clean. There's other options as well. I would think in my mind, there's tons of people who clean without drinking. Like, what else can I do? And just that knowledge of the fact that there's other people who clean without drinking, for example, that would help me kind of think about different ways to brainstorm, gradually finding different ways. But the beautiful thing about the Sinclair method is you can have your extinction session while you're cleaning, and then gradually over, months or weeks, you can start to find other things to do while cleaning that feels rewarding. And for me, that's like listening to a great book or a podcast. Those are my favorite things to do. I'm like really looking forward to it. So I do it while cleaning, or music. So that I just relate to that, because I too would get drunk and clean and just felt like I could do a better job. But I don't think that was really true in the long run, for me at least. But just know that there are other ways that you can, be occupied while cleaning, even if that aren't boring. But it's a process of learning those things. And I would love to hear, Bruce, what you have to say to that as well.
The only thing I was going to say was just, it's always remember that it's a process. So it's not a case of black and white. The challenge again with abstinent-based models to what we do, abstinent-based models are black, white, drink, don't drink. Am I an alcoholic? Am I not an alcoholic? That's why we hate that word. It's not. Alcoholic gives that impression. I'm an alcoholic or I'm not an alcoholic. What level do I become an alcoholic? All that kind of stuff. It's what we do is it's all about regaining control over one's drinking. Over one's drinking. That sounded very British, didn't it? Over one's drinking. It's about regaining control of your drinking. It's not, the drinking will get out of control to a level. Everyone's different, and the process is just about regaining control, and that will take time. So the first week, you may have a bottle of wine when you're cleaning. The 3 months down the track, well, not 3 months, but say 3 or 4 weeks down the track, you may have half a bottle when you're cleaning. Then you go down to a glass when you're cleaning, and then all of a sudden you go, actually, do you know what? I'm not cleaning. It's not. I don't feel great when I'm drinking and cleaning. So always, what I'm trying to say is just remember, as Katie said, it's a process. You're not going to suddenly go from there to there. So just allow the process to happen, and it will happen naturally and comfortably if you just go through it at the right speed.
Yeah, very well said. And that's the thing about TSM, and what's great about it is it's gentle. It's not this black and white, you're either succeeding or failing. It's about making these small changes and doing what you've always done, but incorporating in the method beforehand as long as you're drinking. And then gradually over time, your drinking, for most of us, will reduce, especially if you're being mindful and kind of working on habit change and things like that. And you'll probably start to find that alcohol is just less appealing in those settings. Or you'll find that your craving isn't as strong. And so maybe you're more willing to try different things. I remember I was someone who would day drink both Saturday and Sunday on my days off. And so for a while on the method, I was always drinking on the weekends and day drinking. And my first Saturday alcohol free was very awkward. It was very terrifying. I remember being out on a Saturday afternoon and I was like, this is so weird. I'm not like drinking at home, getting drunk. And that may sound bad, but it was true. It was just this very surreal experience where I was sober, having a coffee at a cafe at like 2:00 in the afternoon. I was like, this is crazy. But you do these things and you realize, oh, that was actually fun. And I still don't want to drink. And you kind of rediscover who you are and what you like outside of your relationship with alcohol. So it's a process. Give yourself grace. It's not an overnight fix like Bruce was kind of speaking to, but the longer you're on the treatment, for most people, the better it works.
And I was going to try some German there, but I can't think of any German at all. Can I get TSM naltrexone in Germany? Yes, absolutely. You may have to. My advice would be to try and find an addiction specialist doctor in Germany, unless Katie's got any other connections or anything.
Not that I'm aware of.
Try and find an addiction specialist doctor who specializes. An addiction psychiatrist is quite often a good try. And TSM, and can you take guys on from the States on your program?
From around the world, you mean, in different countries? Yeah, we can. Yeah.
And then so what I would highly recommend, find a doctor that will prescribe in Germany. And if you don't have access to, or if a normal doctor won't do it in Germany, speak to an addiction specialist doctor. And if the first one says no, go and try 2 or 3 others until you find someone that has knowledge of the Sinclair method. And then I would highly recommend plugging into the Thrive program, because you can do that from anywhere in the world, and that will give you access to Zoom meetings, to videos, to training, to a whole back of stack material of other materials as well. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I'd say if you're going to your doctor to, again, I was saying earlier, to bring a study with you, whatever kind of medical database you guys have over there, the government database for clinical research, just search naltrexone. Google Scholar is another one, just to go to the appointment with a study that talks about naltrexone for alcohol use, just so that's something the doctor can quickly review at the appointment.
And Karen, Daisy, I am the same way. Chores seem to be so much more palatable when I'm drinking. But I think part of the issue is I'm drinking daily. So when it's time to do the chores, I feel less than 100% from drinking the day before, and then drink again to relieve that. Absolutely, Karen. And you'll find it doesn't really matter whether it's chores or whether it's housework or whether it's taking a dog for a walk or whether it's when someone's drinking. The thing that I always go back to with people is we try to justify drinking. We try to explain why someone relapses. We try to do this, that, and another. Always, always, always remember that everything that you do in relationship to alcohol is completely and utterly dependent on the endorphin that is produced when you drink alcohol. So now, whether that reward is coming from housework or whether it's or chores or whatever you call it, or whether it's walking the dog, or whether it's boredom, or whether it's you're thirsty, whether it's you're anxious, whether you're stressed, whether you're all the different reasons why people drink, they put it into a category, and it's not so much the issue then is people then become hyper focused on it's the chores that's causing the problem, or it's the stress that's causing the problem, or it's the walking the dog that's the problem, or I can't, whatever it is. The issue is that the brain wants the endorphin reward, and you can when you take the medication, it will regulate it. You can still get the reward. So it's a process. So just, it's not, what I'm trying to say is it's not, yes, the chores, but that, as we were saying before, over time will slowly you'll get used to doing it, and you'll actually do it half the speed, twice as quickly. And don't tell my wife I said that, because she'll then expect me to do it as well. Or do more of it.
Yeah, so I'm glad you said that, Bruce, because someone else in the comments, I think it was Steve, mentioned Atomic Habits, that book by James Clear. And I think that he speaks to that in the book about how our habits kind of get coupled together. And so one habit kind of gets coupled in with another one, and that can help us or it can hurt us. Like how Bruce was saying, well, now cleaning is associated with drinking. But the good news is like you can break those habits apart over time, and cleaning, like for me, is now associated with podcasts. Like it used to be rosé or something like that, but now it's podcasts. And so I think it's really, Steve suggested that book. I highly recommend reading Atomic Habits or doing the Audible with the lens of, okay, how can I apply this to change my drinking habits through TSM? I think it's a really great companion for habit change. So thank you, Steve, for recommending that. And I just saw this comment by Helena where she said the diary, meaning the drink diary, helped me so much. I think I would have given up if I wasn't tracking my drinks. And I'm so glad you spoke to that, Helena, because I think it's something that I know I was not consistent with. I wish I would have been. And sometimes people cannot be consistent with it. But I think it's really helpful because, like you, Helena, I know your journey, you were like it took you a long time to see significant results with the method. And so some weeks or days or months, people can feel like nothing's happening. But if you have that data to look back on, you can really see, like you said, the progress that's there, where in the day-to-day, it might not be very obvious. But if you look back, 30 days ago, I was drinking 20% more. Okay, like I am heading in the right direction. So really thank you for speaking to that, because I do think it's important to have that information. I wasn't great about it because I was afraid of the number. So I didn't want to like log my drinks. So I didn't log it very consistently, to be honest, but I wish I would have.
And LTP glitterpause. I love that name. Would drinking a glass of fizzy water in between each glass of wine count as a little thing to try? Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, the habits. The secret with the habits is to be, what's the word am I trying to find out here? Is to be consistent with them. So what will happen a lot of the times is that someone will say, okay, well, I'm going to have a drink. And then let's say someone that I'm working with is drinking 3 glasses of wine a day. I would normally go to the hour changing first and foremost. But if that doesn't work, I would then go to, say, drinking 3 glasses of wine. So I'd say, okay, your first drink, have a full glass, a normal glass of wine. The second drink, have wine and fizzy water, half and half. And then in the third one, have wine in the third one. Then what happens is that, but do that for a whole week and stick to that only. And then the next week, then I'll have 1 glass of wine to start with, and then I'll have a fizzy water in the middle, stretch that out, and then I'll have a glass of wine at the end. So then you slowly reduce it. But whatever you do, make sure that you stick with it, because the biggest mistake I see people make is they try with the wine, fizzy water, wine. They do that the first week, and then they hear another idea or read another idea somewhere else, and they go, oh, I'll try that this week. And then I call it the idea of the week. So they do one week, another week, another one, another week. And then before you know it, the drink diary is all up and down and all over the place. And that's why I find working with the hour slot's much easier. The workout, do you have a set time that you start drinking? If it is, just shift it back by half an hour, just half an hour backwards. Do that for a week, and then do it again the next week, and the next week, and the next week. But if you find that's easier, that's absolutely great. Whatever habit you change, then do it. But do a little bit and be consistent with it, because there's no point changing it 1 week and then not sustaining it, because you just go back. And that initially is a conscious decision until it becomes a habit again.
Yeah, and I think the key is to not overwhelm yourself, because sometimes I'll see people have like 3, 4, 5 goals they're trying to do, and then they burn themselves out in a week. So like Bruce is saying, those little things, but with consistency. So whatever you want to do, just don't put too much pressure on yourself. Kind of master one thing. And like Bruce said, it's a conscious effort at first, but then it becomes a habit. Like, yeah, I just always drink a fizzy water between each alcoholic drink. That's just now my new habit. And that's something you establish by doing it repeatedly over time. That's where I like our coach Danny, her article on one thing different, like just thinking about it from that frame of mind without trying to put too much pressure on yourself to do 12 things different, in each drinking session. That can just burn us out and cause us to throw in the towel or just stop trying. So yeah, great question.
Yeah. And this all makes so much sense. I'm hoping I can find a doctor to prescribe the meds. Again, if you're in the States, please get in touch with Thrive. Thrive will direct you straight to a doctor.
Yeah. Karen's question, it says, been on TSM for 10 months with much success, was 3 weeks alcohol free in October, then went on a vacation with friends and have been drinking daily ever since. Disappointed. How do I get back on track? Karen, no worries. I will say, like, the good news about TSM is you can get back on track. I guess I'm curious if you've remained compliant in this time post-vacation. Are you drinking daily with or without the medication? That makes a big difference. If you've been compliant and your drinking has just ticked up, it could be anything having to do with, the season we're in, perhaps stresses in your life. Are you turning to alcohol? Like in our group meeting this week in Thrive, one of our members was noticing his drinking was going up because of the holidays and the stress that comes along with it. So maybe seeing if you can take a step back and understand why your drinking has increased, if you've remained compliant. And then if that's the case and it's just increased, I don't know what you would personally need, but getting back on track, whether it's an increase in self-care or just kind of rethinking a strategy like we've been talking about, doing one thing different. How can you be more mindful during your drinking sessions and incorporate a different habit change? Lots of little things you can do to get back on track with that. But if you've been non-compliant, my biggest thing would just be like, get back to being compliant and make that a non-negotiable and focus on that until you feel like that's mastered. But it's really two different answers depending on whether you've been compliant, but not allowing the full hour and a half. Okay. Yeah. So I would say, if you could get back to because, the golden rule with the Sinclair method, what they talk about in the book is to take naltrexone 1 hour before drinking. That's what Sinclair's protocol was. But I know it sounds like your doctor is suggesting the 90 minutes. Just anecdotally, I've heard people say that has really helped them. So that would be something that could be a big game changer for you. I don't know if you found that eating before drinking has helped you. And just like we've been talking about, like if you can kind of start afresh and just think, okay, what's one thing I can do different? Maybe for you, it's being fully compliant again. And just like Bruce was talking about, do that consistently for the next week. Focus on that. And then do something else that can help to interrupt the habits, whether that's an alcohol-free day or changing up the habit that you're drinking in or the pattern that you're drinking in. What would you say to that, Bruce?
Exactly what you're saying. So there's sort of two options for it, and absolutely. The other option as well is, I'd be curious, is if your 3 weeks in October, was that part of Sober October? If you're on the Sinclair method, stick to the Sinclair method and avoid Sober October. Not in all cases, take that with a pinch of salt. Sometimes as you're reducing on the Sinclair method, if you reduce too much too quickly, it can cause what I call a bounce back. So again, it sounds like if you haven't been 100% compliant or having a drink not within the compliancy hour, then that can cause it as well. But it might be that you've reduced too much too quickly. So as Katie's saying, just get back on track. And then little bit by little bit. It was obviously working well before then, so it will work well again. You won't have it's not that it won't work again. So just get back on track and do it again. So.
Yeah, you can get back on track. And it sounds like you already have some options to pull with regards to compliance or maybe eating or just, mixing up the mindfulness and the habit a bit. And not to beat yourself up, Karen, just to kind of, start again, get back on the TSM wagon, you can restart again. I just realized the time, Bruce. We've already gone a full hour, which that went by so quickly. Are there any other? I think we got to the majority of the questions and everything. Wow, thank you guys so much for everyone who was
very,
here.
very quick.
Yeah.
Well done to Helena. She started at 120 units and she's down to 10.
Wow.
Fantastic. Well done.
That's incredible. Well done, Helena. That's amazing. And I think I've known Helena for much of her journey. So, I mean, that's just incredible to see that you're still involved in the TSM community and have you here. So thank you for joining the conversation. I want to just speak. I see John's question. I find I get irritable when I take naltrexone. Is that a common issue? I had that side effect too, John. So I want to speak to that. I had it inconsistently on the medication. Sometimes I would, sometimes I wouldn't. But I did do a poll a while back. I don't remember the results, but there were a percentage of people, maybe around 20%. I don't remember exactly, but I did a poll of the community and a percentage of people did have that side effect. It didn't impact everyone, but you're not alone if you're having that side effect.
I'd also be interested to know if there was a drop in alcohol around that time as well.
A drop in alcohol
during that period.
The irritability.
John was saying that when taking naltrexone, because one thing I do notice with a lot of clients that I work with, very quickly, for one example, people say that all of a sudden they'll phone me up 7, 8, 9 weeks into it. Bruce, this medication's making me really sleepy all of a sudden. I'm really tired all of a sudden. So the first thing I do is I go to the drink diary, and I noticed they were drinking 150 units of wine, and now they're drinking 40 units of wine. And there's been quite a drop recently. So when I spoke to our doctor, the doctor then said there's a high chance that it's the drop in sugar and it's not the medication. So I'm not saying we can't go there, but I'd be interested to see if there was a reduction of alcohol at the time. So
yeah,
it's another possibility.
yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of changes when we are drinking less, and it's hard to know what's
a drop
okay.
in my alcohol intake very much. So again, what I would do is just monitor it, John. The reason I'm saying that is it could be the drop in alcohol that's caused it. If it doesn't, then speak to your prescriber is the word I'm trying to find.
Yeah.
Trying to think what the American term is. It's prescribed.
Yeah. Yeah, and hopefully it's tolerable. I know for me, it would usually happen like within an hour of taking it, and it would last an hour or two, and then it would go away. And it didn't happen every time, but I remember that I was like, I feel irritated right now. Oh, it's the medication, maybe. All right. Wow. I just want to thank you guys so much for joining. Those who are here at this live and contributed to the conversation, asked questions. Thank you so much. And to everyone who's watching the replay, thank you as well. Bruce and I will be back again probably in about a month. We'll see with the holidays what the plan is. But thank you everyone for joining. Again, if you're in the US and you want to get started or get supported on the Sinclair Method at Thrive, we have a private online program you can join. You can visit us at thrivealcoholrecovery.com or definitely visit our social channels. We're always putting out content and information on TSM. And Bruce as well, he serves people in the UK. And right now you can reach him at alcoholrecoveryscotland.co.uk. He's an incredible, compassionate counselor who really loves the people he takes care of and really serves them. And so I'm grateful to know him and have him with me today. So thank you so much. Anything you want to say, Bruce, as we leave the call?
It's not your fault. It's a neurological condition of the brain, and it's completely treatable.
Amen. That's a great place to end it on. Thank you so much, Bruce. Thank you so much, everyone. We'll see you later.